You. Demons don't show horns, they wear familiar faces. That's the hardest truth to swallow. The ones who hold you back the most rarely look like enemies. They look like home. They sound like your mother, your brother, your best friend. They show up at your birthdays, your weddings, your lowest moments, not always with a knife in their hand, but often with a smile that hides their intent. You. They'll cheer when you fall and whisper doubts when you rise. And because you trust them, because you've known them for years, because you've shared your soul with them, you hesitate to see what they truly are. This is the danger of emotional camouflage. When someone plays the role of a friend or family member, we automatically assign them loyalty points they haven't earned. We excuse their patterns because of history. We let them stay close, even when our intuition screams for distance. They wear masks so well you begin to question your own judgment. That's how it starts. They'll sow seeds of doubt, then stand back and watch you water them. They'll mock your vision, disguise it as teasing, and label your goals as unrealistic, just enough to make you hesitate. The familiar face doesn't have to attack you with rage. They attack you with subtlety. They guilt you into staying in your old patterns. They remind you of who you used to be, not who you're trying to become. Every time you try to evolve, they bring up your failures. Every time you express joy, they inject a dose of fear. You'll hear things like, "Don't get your hopes up," or "You sure that's for you?" Or, "People like us don't make it that far." That's not caution. That's corrosion. They're not worried about your safety. They're worried about your growth, exposing their stagnation. They know your weak spots because they've been close enough to memorize them. They've seen you cry. They've watched you break. So when you start to heal, when you start to reclaim your worth, they don't celebrate it. They resist it. Because your healing threatens the dynamic where they had power over your insecurity. Demons don't like your strength. They don't like your boundaries. They don't like when you stop needing them, when you stop justifying their behavior, when you stop shrinking to protect their comfort. They'll tell you that you're selfish for pulling away. They'll say you're arrogant for wanting more. They'll twist your growth into betrayal, as if choosing peace over pain is a crime. But you weren't put here to be emotionally manipulated. You weren't born to sacrifice your fire just to keep others warm in their misery. If someone's love is only present when you're struggling, but disappears when you're succeeding, it was never love, it was control. And control wears many faces. Sometimes it looks like overprotection. Sometimes it looks like constant criticism. Sometimes it looks like excessive guilt masked as concern. What makes it harder is the shared history. You'll remember the good times. You'll recall the childhood laughter, the old memories, the inside jokes. That nostalgia will try to convince you to overlook the damage. But love isn't a hall pass for harm. Connection isn't a permission slip for toxicity. You're allowed to outgrow people who once mattered. You're allowed to protect your energy even from the people who helped shape you. Because who they were then doesn't excuse who they are now. The hardest demons to face are not the loud ones. They're the quiet ones, the ones who pretend to root for you in public but resent you in private. The ones who keep you close so they can keep you contained. The ones who make you question your path every time you start climbing. They'll give you backhanded compliments. They'll smile while undermining you. They'll offer advice laced with fear, never hope. And when you start distancing yourself, they'll play victim. That's part of the playbook. It's all manipulation dressed in intimacy. Recognizing this doesn't make you heartless. It makes you awake. It makes you self-aware. It means you finally stopped worshiping labels and started watching actions. That's how you separate the loyal from the leech. That's how you spot the demon that doesn't snarl but speaks in a voice you once trusted. The one who hides not in the shadows, but in your daily life, around your dinner table, inside your phone. Because the most dangerous demons are the ones who convinced you they're not demons at all. Energy is your radar. Trust what drains you, not just what they say. Words can lie. Smiles can deceive. Actions can be rehearsed. But energy doesn't pretend. Energy is the unseen truth that pulses beneath the surface of every interaction. It's the atmosphere you feel when someone enters the room. It's the weight in your chest after a conversation. It's the quiet ache in your spirit when your presence is slowly being dimmed by people who claim to care. While people may present well, make promises and say all the right things, your body often knows the truth before your mind is ready to accept it. When someone consistently leaves you feeling depleted, confused, anxious, or small, you. That isn't love, support, or friendship. That's your radar picking up static. That's your intuition warning you that something's off, you. But many people learn to silence that signal because it doesn't match the narrative they've been told. Maybe the person is family, and you've been raised to believe blood is sacred. And maybe there's someone you've known for years, and it feels disloyal to question their role in your life. Maybe they're charming, funny, or generous at times. So the inconsistency keeps you stuck in cycles of self-doubt. But the truth is, your body is always keeping score, and it speaks through energy, you. We're conditioned to ignore energy and overvalue appearance. Someone shows up with the right words and polished gestures, and we give them access to our spirit, you. But you must learn to read what exists beneath the performance. How do you feel after they speak to you? Do you feel seen, safe, and stronger? Or do you feel unsure, drained, and hesitant to be yourself? You. That emotional residue is your real feedback. It's more reliable than the nice things they say or the apologies they give after every offense. You. Some people have a draining presence not because they are outright hostile, but because they constantly project their unresolved pain onto you. They rely on you for emotional labor. You expect you to carry their burdens and guilt you when you try to establish boundaries. They might not raise their voice, but their mere presence feels heavy. You find yourself bracing for their mood swings, editing your thoughts around them, or walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. That's not love. That's energetic vampirism, you. And the longer you ignore it, the more you teach yourself to tolerate depletion as a form of connection. There are others who present as the helper, the listener, you, the advice giver. But it's always one-sided. They rarely ask about your world unless they're fishing for flaws or waiting to compare you. They camouflage their criticism as concern and mask control as care. Their words sound supportive, but something in your gut feels unsettled. That's because your radar is working. They're saying the right things, but your energy is absorbing the weight of their true intent. It's manipulative, and it's designed to confuse. In contrast, real connection restores your spirit, you. Even when it's honest, even when it's challenging, it leaves you feeling lighter, more grounded, and more empowered. Real ones don't make you second-guess your worth, you. They don't drain you just by being in your space. They don't use guilt to keep you close. They feed your vision instead of starving your hope. And you can feel the difference, not in the volume of their voice or the gifts they give, but in the way your spirit responds in their presence. Energy doesn't require explanation. It's not intellectual, it's instinctual. The mistake many people make is trying to justify or rationalize their exhaustion instead of simply acknowledging it. You don't need a list of offenses to validate your decision to create space. You just need to honor your radar. You don't owe anyone endless access to your peace just because they pretend well. You owe it to yourself to trust the signal, not the script. When your energy feels off, when your soul feels tense, when your chest tightens for no clear reason around someone. That's your radar working exactly as it should. Family titles don't grant moral immunity. Just because someone is your parent, your sibling, your cousin, your uncle, or someone with whom you share blood or a last name does not give them a free pass to mistreat you, control you, or manipulate you without consequence. The idea that family is always right, always to be obeyed or always to be forgiven, has led countless people into cycles of emotional imprisonment. People are taught from a young age to value loyalty over well-being, tradition over truth, and silence over healing. That conditioning becomes a prison for those who are hurting behind closed doors, but feel too guilty or scared to speak out because the harm is coming from someone they were taught to love without question. Being family does not erase the weight of someone's actions. Titles don't erase toxicity. You can be a mother and still be emotionally abusive. You can be a brother and still be manipulative. You can be a grandfather and still be toxic. The role doesn't excuse the behavior. Yet in many households, especially those built on rigid cultural or generational ideals, there's a built-in hierarchy where age and title dominate truth and accountability. The father is always respected, no matter what. The older sibling is always trusted, no matter how they treat the younger one. The family member who has done so much for you can weaponize that history as a shield against any future accountability. People hide behind their roles like armor, refusing to examine their behavior because the title gives them automatic validation. But morality is not inherited with your last name. Character is not guaranteed by DNA. The quality of your soul is not dictated by your family tree. Some of the most damaging people wear the mask of caretaker, disciplinarian, or protector, while they slowly chip away at the spirit of those they claim to love. And the damage runs deep, not just because of the actions themselves, because the victim is often forced to suppress their pain in the name of keeping the family together, or respecting elders. Respect is earned. It doesn't flow automatically from birthright. You can appreciate the sacrifices someone made for you and still not allow them to mistreat you. You can understand the hardships they went through and still refuse to carry the emotional scars they passed down. Generational pain becomes a cycle when people use it as an excuse to harm others and refuse to do the work to heal. Saying that's just how they are is not a justification, it's a surrender. And many people suffer quietly under the weight of that surrender. Family can be the source of great love, but it can also be the birthplace of your deepest wounds. And until you're willing to see family members for who they are, not just who they're supposed to be, you'll stay stuck in patterns that drain you. Love doesn't require blindness. Forgiveness doesn't require silence. Being a good son or daughter, a good cousin or sibling, doesn't mean you ignore abuse, manipulation, or gaslighting just because it's happening at the dinner table instead of a stranger in the street. Some people hide behind their family role to avoid accountability altogether. They expect unwavering loyalty while showing none in return. They demand your time, your energy, your obedience, but never offer respect, support, or emotional safety. And when you speak up, you become the villain, the black sheep, the disrespectful one. But that label is often the price of waking up. The moment you stop pretending, stop playing your assigned role, stop tolerating mistreatment just to maintain a false peace, you become a threat to the illusion. But illusions don't create healing. Truth does. You have the right to define what family means to you. You have the right to decide who earns access to your heart, your time, and your energy. Blood may be a connection, but it's not a contract for lifelong submission. The true measure of family is not in names or roles. It's in actions, in consistency, in how safe you feel being your full self in their presence. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they're safe. And just because someone raised you doesn't mean they never hurt you. The truth is uncomfortable, but ignoring it never makes it disappear. It only buries it deeper until you're the one carrying a weight that was never yours to begin with. Excuses are their currency. Don't accept their emotional bribes. The people who constantly drain your energy, betray your trust, or repeatedly cross boundaries rarely take accountability. Instead, they rely on a currency of excuses to maintain control and avoid consequences. They come armed with justifications for every action, explanations for every lie, and emotional stories to shield them from the truth. They don't want to be responsible. They want to be excused. And they expect you to hand out emotional permission slips in the form of forgiveness. Silence or second chances every time they fail to grow. Their excuses don't sound like admissions of guilt. They sound like manipulation wrapped in vulnerability. They'll say things like, I didn't mean to, or I'm going through a lot, or that's just how I am. These statements are not reflections of change. They are shields. They are designed to make you hesitate, to soften your stance, to guilt you into staying quiet. And when you respond with empathy, they take it as permission to continue. It becomes a cycle of hurt, apology, excuse, and repeat. But what they're really offering isn't an apology, it's a bribe. They want your continued access. They want your forgiveness without transformation. Emotional bribes don't always come in words. Sometimes they show up in moments of sudden affection. The person who just disrespected you is now sending you flowers. The one who ghosted you for weeks suddenly wants to reconnect with tears and trembling hands. The one who betrayed your confidence suddenly remembers an old memory, tells you they miss you, reminds you of the good times. These aren't gestures of change, they're tactics of control. They want you to feel bad for pulling away. They want you to see their pain instead of your own. And if you're not careful, you'll internalize their suffering as your responsibility. You'll start thinking that it's your job to fix them, your duty to understand them, your role to heal what you didn't break. But no matter how many excuses they offer, no matter how painful their past might be, no one has the right to keep hurting you while hiding behind their own wounds. Pain explains behavior. It doesn't excuse it. There's a difference between someone who's actively healing and someone who's weaponizing their hurt to avoid accountability. One takes responsibility. The other demands leniency without effort. The longer you allow excuses to stand in for growth, the more you train yourself to accept less than you deserve. You begin to build tolerance for mistreatment. You start convincing yourself that they'll change eventually, that they just need time, that deep down they're a good person. And maybe they are. But good people with bad behavior still cause damage. And if they refuse to acknowledge the harm they're causing, they become dangerous, not because of intent, but because of impact. Intent doesn't undo harm, and excuses don't heal wounds. At some point, you have to ask yourself, what's being bought with all these excuses? What are they trying to purchase from you? Is it your silence, your loyalty, your continued presence in a relationship that's slowly eroding your self-worth? Emotional bribes are about access. They're not about love. They're about keeping you tethered to a dynamic that benefits them while draining you. They know exactly which buttons to press. They know how to make you feel guilty for leaving and selfish for protecting yourself. And if you're not clear on your own value, you'll hand them exactly what they want: your power, your peace, your forgiveness, and your time. Growth demands boundaries. Accountability demands discomfort. The people who truly care about you will be willing to sit in that discomfort and make changes, not excuses. They won't rely on manipulation to keep you close. They won't guilt you for having standards. And they won't use their past as a weapon against your present. The moment you stop accepting emotional bribes, you stop being controlled by their narrative. You start living your truth instead of being trapped in theirs. Excuses are cheap currency, but your peace is priceless. True love empowers. Manipulation enslaves. The difference between the two can be subtle in words, but thunderous in effect. One sets you free, uplifts your spirit, sharpens your confidence, and supports your evolution. The other binds you in guilt, walks you through emotional landmines, and makes you question your own worth under the illusion of closeness. Too often, manipulation hides under the mask of affection. It whispers words that sound like love, but leave behind chains that feel like captivity. It says, I care about you, while slowly stripping you of your voice. It offers conditional affection delivered in doses that coincide with your compliance. True love doesn't control. It celebrates your autonomy. It doesn't fear your independence, your growth, or your healing. It supports it, even if that healing requires space, honesty, or boundaries. Empowering love holds space for disagreement without punishment. It encourages expression without emotional ransom. It thrives in trust, not in control. It does not demand that you shrink so someone else can feel more secure. It expands with you, breathes with you, adjusts with you. It doesn't guilt you into staying. It invites you to remain by choice. Manipulation, on the other hand, demands emotional submission. It relies on tactics, guilt trips, silent treatments, passive aggression, or overly dramatic emotional displays to create pressure. It might say things like, if you really loved me, you would. Or after everything I've done for you, or I guess I just don't matter to you anymore. These aren't expressions of vulnerability. They're weapons, They're meant to produce compliance, not connection. In such dynamics, your value becomes conditional, your peace becomes negotiable, your truth is inconvenient, and your freedom, that's the biggest threat. When you're in the presence of true love, you feel safe, not because you're never challenged, but because challenge comes without condemnation. Your boundaries are respected, not weaponized. Your silence isn't assumed to be disrespect. It's honored as your right. Your needs aren't seen as burdens. They're embraced with care. True love says, be you. Fully not be what I need so I feel comfortable. It doesn't police your growth or sabotage your confidence. Instead, it fuels it. It wants you to succeed, even if that success doesn't always center around them. It sees your light and helps protect it. Manipulation can be subtle and hard to spot, especially when it's cloaked in the language of sacrifice. I gave up so much for you sounds noble until it becomes a chain. You'd be nothing without me sounds like history until it becomes a threat. I only want what's best for you feels loving until it becomes a code for control. And perhaps the most insidious part of manipulation is that it often leaves you questioning your own sanity. You start to wonder if you're the selfish one, if you're too sensitive, if your boundaries are unfair. But when love becomes something you have to constantly explain, defend, or beg for, it's no longer love. It's a contract built on emotional debt. True love isn't afraid of your no. It doesn't crumble when you take space. It doesn't withdraw affection to punish or coerce. It invites honesty, even when the truth is hard. It's not threatened by your healing. It's inspired by it. It doesn't need you to play small so it can feel big. And it never holds your past over your head as leverage to keep you dependent. It says, I love you as you grow, not just as you were when we met. That's empowerment. That's partnership. The key difference lies in what each demands from you. Manipulation asks for your obedience. True love asks for your authenticity. Manipulation wants control. Love wants connection. And where one weakens you into silence, the other strengthens your voice. One wraps its arms around your potential and waters it. The other chains you to patterns that suffocate your joy. In love, you expand. In manipulation, you shrink. And the longer you stay in either, the more it rewires your sense of worth. True love builds a home inside you where you are free to be. Manipulation builds a cage and calls it loyalty. They laugh when you dream and vanish when you act. That's the reality of many relationships that appear supportive on the surface, but crack the moment your ambition threatens the status quo. When you talk about your vision, your plans, your goals, they smirk, dismiss, or mock you, not always harshly, but with that passive tone that carries more weight than any direct insult. That's cute, they say. Let's see how long that lasts. Doing that, they pretend it's humor, but your soul hears the truth behind the tone. It's not just doubt, it's resistance. Because your growth confronts their complacency. They'll sit with you for hours when you're stuck, lost, or complaining. They'll lean in, nod their heads, offer their version of advice or sympathy. As long as you're circling the same patterns, repeating the same stories, playing the same part, they're right there with you. But the moment you stop talking and start moving, something shifts. Their presence becomes inconsistent. Their tone becomes colder. Their availability evaporates. Because when you act, you change the dynamic. When you move forward, you force reflection. And that reflection is uncomfortable for those who have been hiding behind excuses while calling it survival. Dreaming is safe for them. As long as your ideas live only in your head or stay trapped in late night conversations, you pose no threat. But the moment you take steps toward those dreams, their insecurity wakes up. Suddenly, your action becomes a mirror. It shows them what they haven't done, what they gave up on, what they never dared to pursue. That mirror doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't comfort. It exposes. And people who are not ready to face their own stagnation will begin to distance themselves from those who move with intention. They'll vanish, not always physically, but emotionally. They'll stop engaging with your progress. They'll stop asking questions. They'll downplay your momentum. You'll feel the subtle withdrawal. They'll get too busy, too tired, too distracted. And if they do show up, it's not to celebrate your movement. It's to question it. Are you sure you want to do this? Is that really sustainable? Don't forget where you came from. These aren't concerns, they're anchors. They're disguised doubts meant to slow your pace so they don't have to speed up. They laughed when you were dreaming because they assumed you'd stay in that stage. They thought your desire was temporary, your ambition a phase. They didn't believe in you because they didn't believe in themselves. And when you act, it shakes the narrative they've clung to. Because if someone close to them dares to rise, what does that say about their decision to remain still? They would rather distance themselves from your flight than confront the reason they never took off. This is how you learn the difference between allies and spectators. Allies push you forward. Spectators enjoy the view only when it doesn't ask anything of them. They want access to your vulnerability, not your victory, because your vulnerability makes them feel needed, but your victory makes them feel exposed. And exposure is uncomfortable for people who built their identity around limitation. So they disappear. They create silence where there was once support. And that silence isn't random. It's reaction. It's the reaction of someone whose comfort relied on your inertia. You start noticing the absence. You realize how many people only clapped when you were stuck, how many only stayed close when your potential felt like a fantasy, not a reality. They were invested in your doubt, not your discipline. They fed your confusion, not your clarity, because confusion kept you close, kept you relatable, kept you small enough not to disturb their own lack of movement. But when you act, when you follow through, when your steps align with your speech, you become a living contradiction to their excuses. It hurts at first, losing people who once felt essential, who once felt permanent. But you realize they weren't cheering for your growth. They were cheering for your delay. You were the one who always dreamed, always talked, always imagined, and that version of you made them feel superior, safe, in control. But action disrupts everything. Action makes you real. you. It makes your vision tangible. And people who never believed in the first place aren't built to handle your manifestation. If you feel smaller around them, it's by design. That shrinking sensation you get when they enter the room, that subtle pull towards silence, that instinct to edit your words or dim your light, it's not accidental. It's not just insecurity on your part. It's the result of intentional emotional conditioning that was designed to keep you beneath them. People who fear their own insignificance will often craft entire dynamics around making sure you never fully step into your power. They need to feel bigger, wiser, stronger, more stable. And the only way they can hold on to that illusion is by keeping you small. Not physically, not obviously, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically. They chip away at your confidence in quiet ways. They don't always insult you outright. Sometimes they do it with a smile, with a laugh that undermines your idea, with a compliment wrapped in criticism, with comparisons that leave you questioning your worth. They call it joking, just being real, or helping you stay grounded. But grounding isn't the goal. Suppression is. They want you tethered, hesitant, unsure, because your hesitation makes them feel in control. Your doubt fuels their sense of superiority. And every time you pull back, overthink or doubt yourself in their presence, they win a silent battle you didn't even realize was happening. It starts subtly. You share an idea and they dismiss it with a raised eyebrow or a sarcastic comment. You talk about something you're proud of and they change the subject. You show excitement about a goal and they remind you of your past failures. Slowly, you begin to anticipate their disapproval before it even happens. You begin to withhold parts of yourself, not because they told you to, but because they've trained you to expect rejection. That's the design. It's a slow erosion of your voice masked as interaction. You might leave the conversation feeling heavy, confused, even guilty, and you can't always point to a single reason why. That confusion is part of the blueprint. They want you to question yourself more than you question them. Over time, the cost is enormous. You start shrinking your wins to fit their comfort. You downplay your potential so they don't feel threatened. You internalize their disapproval and start seeing yourself through their lens. And then you wonder why your confidence feels hollow. Why you second guess your worth. Why you feel so much smaller in their presence. That feeling isn't rooted in truth. It's rooted in manipulation. It's engineered to keep you compliant, to ensure you never rise high enough to outgrow the space they've assigned to you. People like this rarely thrive in mutual empowerment. They prefer asymmetry. They want the upper hand in every interaction. They don't feel safe unless you're unsure of yourself. And if you start rising, they'll notice. They'll sense the shift. They'll remind you, directly or indirectly, of your flaws, your mistakes, your limits. Not because they care, because your growth threatens their dominance. Your expansion disturbs the carefully maintained imbalance where they get to feel superior. They may claim to love you. They may say they're only trying to protect you from disappointment. But protection without belief isn't love, it's control. True love allows you to rise. It doesn't require your dimming to feel safe. If you feel like you must become smaller to keep the peace, to avoid jealousy, to protect someone's ego, then what you're doing isn't relating, it's performing. And that performance will exhaust your soul, Because no matter how well you play the role they've assigned you, a deeper part of you will always know the truth. You were never meant to live beneath anyone's insecurity. That feeling of shrinking is not a flaw in your confidence. It's a reflection of their design, a design that was never about your growth, your truth, or your joy. It was about their need to stay in control, to be the one who always knows more, does more, matters more. And so they keep you second, guessing, unsure, dependent on their approval or validation. But the moment you become aware of the pattern is the moment it begins to lose power. That's when you start reclaiming space. That's when you realize you were never too much. You were just in an environment that demanded you be less. And the people who truly love you will never need you to shrink to make them feel tall. You weren't born to be loyal to your oppressor. Freedom isn't betrayal. This is a truth that shakes the foundation of what many have been taught about loyalty, family, and obligation. From a young age, loyalty is often framed as an unbreakable bond. A sacred promise to stand by certain people no matter what they do. But that promise can become a trap when it binds you to those who harm you, who limit you, who keep you stuck in patterns of pain or suppression. Loyalty to those who oppress you is not a virtue. It's a form of self-imprisonment disguised as devotion. The moment you recognize this, You realize that choosing your freedom is not betrayal, but survival. Oppressors thrive on control. They manipulate loyalty as a weapon to silence dissent and maintain power. They demand unwavering allegiance and punish questioning or rebellion with guilt, shame, or isolation. They want you to believe that stepping away is an act of disloyalty, a wound that cuts deeper than their own harmful actions. But their narrative is a lie designed to keep you tethered to pain and limitation. True loyalty is rooted in respect, care, and mutual growth, not in fear, domination, or sacrifice of your own well-being. When you begin to see that your loyalty has been exploited, it can feel like a betrayal, but only if you accept the oppressor's definition of loyalty. Real loyalty honors your worth. It supports your freedom. It encourages your evolution. To be loyal to your oppressor is to deny yourself the chance to grow, heal, and become who you were meant to be. It's to sacrifice your potential on the altar of someone else's control. But freedom is not a betrayal. It is the reclamation of your soul, the assertion of your humanity, and the refusal to be defined by the chains others have placed on you. Freedom comes with courage, the courage to face uncomfortable truths, to break long-standing patterns, and to risk rejection or misunderstanding from those you once depended on. It means choosing your peace over their approval, your growth over their comfort, your boundaries over their demands. This is not selfishness. It is self-respect. It is an act of bravery that says you will no longer be a prisoner to manipulation, guilt, or emotional abuse disguised as loyalty. Those who truly love and respect you will understand that your freedom is essential, not threatening. They will celebrate your growth, even if it means you step away from old dynamics that no longer serve you. They will honor your boundaries and encourage your pursuit of happiness, But the oppressor fears your freedom because it shatters their control. They will label your choice as betrayal to keep you in line, to make you question yourself, and to maintain the illusion that their power is absolute. It's important to remember that breaking free from oppression, whether it's emotional, mental, or even physical, is an act of self-love, not treachery. It is the recognition that you deserve more than control and pain. You deserve respect, kindness, and the space to thrive. Freedom allows you to surround yourself with allies, people who lift you up rather than hold you down. It allows you to rewrite the story of your life on your own terms. Choosing freedom is a declaration that you refuse to be defined by the limits others impose. It is the rejection of narratives that keep you small and the embrace of your full potential. When you step into freedom, you honor the parts of yourself that have been silenced or diminished. You reclaim your voice, your choices, and your power. And in doing so, you create a new legacy, not one built on blind loyalty to those who hurt you, but on love for yourself and the courage to live authentically. This path isn't easy. It often means walking away from people you once trusted, from traditions that once felt sacred, from roles that once defined your identity. But it also means stepping into a life where you are no longer shackled by fear, guilt, or obligation. It means living in alignment with your truth, honoring your worth, and embracing the freedom you were always meant to have.